Building your dream team, the team that is finally going to give you that sustainable growth. Sarah here, aka the Business Fixer. So this is not my normal time for going live. Normally it's a Thursday, but I was on client site yesterday, and today, well, I've had an interesting time in terms of lack of internet connection, certainly in terms of a decent speed. So I'm here now, and I hope that you will really get the benefit from listening today about how to build that dream team. So when we talk about how to build a business team, most people imagine those away days, the forced fun and the trust falls, and the sorts of team building exercises and away days that some do. And I'm not saying they're a bad thing, because I think actually they can be great to be able to really build the connection within the team. But we need to start before we even get to that bit, right? And if you're really serious about creating a business that works for you, not the other way around, you need to think way beyond that fun sort of away day type concept. Building your dream team is one of the many most critical decisions you'll ever make as a business owner, because this isn't just for your performance, it's about actually giving you your freedom back. And it all ultimately starts with you, right? So the first thing I would say is, step one, you've got to know yourself first. Before you even think about the recruitment in terms of creating that dream team, you need to get really honest with yourself. And what do I mean by that? I want you to really sit and think about, what are your strengths? And more importantly, where do you really, really struggle? Far too many business owners hold on to everything because they think they should know it all and do it all. And spoiler alert, you won't know it all, and you certainly shouldn't be doing it all. Leadership isn't about necessarily being the smartest person in the room. It's about creating a room of smart people who can help you succeed. The most effective and most successful business owners, they're the ones that work with ones who have that they're the ones that have that self-awareness, right? That they are open to admitting things like, I'm great at sales, but I'm useless operations, or I'm great with people, but I'm not so great with the day-to-day admin, or I can lead a room, but I can't manage a spreadsheet to save my life, right? Some of these things hopefully are resonating with you. This level of honesty with yourself becomes your superpower, because once you know what you're brilliant at and what you're not, you can then build a team that complements you. That's when you stop fighting your business and start working with it, right? So the big question is why do the best leaders not need to know everything? Let's get something straight here. Strong leadership has no room for the ego. It's about the vision. It's about that bigger picture. So if you want your business to scale, you need to stop being the bottleneck, because I can tell you now, you as a business owner, you are the bottleneck. That means you've got to surround yourself with people who might even know more than you in key areas, and having the confidence to let them own it. I know, I'm one of these people who loves to absorb knowledge. I love to learn everything, but I also know there are some things, one, I don't need to know. Two, I am not the best person to be doing it, that there are better people who can be doing it. And ultimately, I shouldn't be doing certain things, right? So hiring someone who's, for example, better than you at the finance side, better at you better than you in the marketing, the HR, or even some of the client delivery, it doesn't diminish your value as a business owner. It enhances it, because the real job of business owner isn't to do everything. It's to build a business that performs at its peak without you doing every single task. How many of you, and be honest, right, are doing pretty much everything yourself, and you really struggle to actually pass it to a team, right? That's why building the right business team should always be strategic. It's not about being reactive. And actually, being reactive is often when you'll also make the wrong hires, because you're in that response of, I need somebody, I'm desperate for somebody, and you therefore then take somebody on that isn't the right fit because you just need somebody to do a certain task. So this is not about plugging gaps. This is all about building that engine that's going to drive growth in your business. And I'll tell you what, the cost of getting it wrong, here's the uncomfortable truth. If you get it wrong, it will cost you in time, money, and energy. Hiring people who don't align with your values, bringing in potentially friends or family because it's easy, keeping someone on the team, even though they've outgrown their capabilities. These are all decisions that will come back to bite you. And I'll give you a prime example of this, right? So when I had the law firm, I wanted to build various departments because I wanted to ultimately be the go-to law firm in terms of high street practice. So what I decided to do is I wanted to bring on somebody who was going to deal with my residential conveyancing. Property is not my favourite subject unless I'm arguing over it. So in reality, I was like, I need somebody to come in. And I obviously have the duty to supervise, so I'd already started to build the department. And I was literally getting to the point where I was stretched so thin that I needed somebody in. So I started my recruitment process, and at that time, my recruitment process is not as tight as what it is that I now train my clients in doing. But anyway, somebody had come through the door, they were readily available, and I had this gut feeling that they weren't probably going to be right, but I was just so desperate to get somebody in. So I offered them the role. And guess what? It all went very wrong. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So this was in the days that we actually had servers. And one of the fundamental rules that we had was the fact that if you had to save everything onto the server, because otherwise that's the only thing that got backed up. So if you saved onto your desktop, it wouldn't get backed up. So that was one of the rules. And the first strike with this particular employee is they failed to save things on the server. And I thought, okay, that could be a training issue. I'll let it lie. The next thing was, and I can't remember the order around these, but the next thing was we had this massive, massive court of appeal case that we were working on. And it was literally all hands on deck. And when I mean all hands on deck, it was a case of that was the only case that we were all working on. And I don't particularly like doing this, but we ended up having to have this fee earner who needed to do some of the copying because it was the only way it was going to get done. So I asked this fee earner and bearing in mind as a lawyer, your attention to detail is quite important. And basically what happened was I'd asked her to do this copying, and my now ex-husband came into the office later on that evening to help out. So we were working into the night, right? And he thankfully checked this copying that this lawyer had done. And no word of a lie, she had missed strips like that wide off. It was no good for the Court of Appeal bundles. So he effectively had to recopy it all for me because she just hadn't paid attention to it. But I think this is the next one that this one was a really interesting one. Okay. So I had no admin person that day, and I had a back-to-back meeting. So I said to the fee earner, I was like, look, just let me know when the next person comes in and I can end the meeting and I can then go into the next one. And I'm sitting there looking up because I'm on a different floor. I'm looking at my watch thinking, that's really odd. They haven't come up to tell me. So I finished that meeting. I come downstairs and I was like, oh, what happened to the next meeting I had booked in? I was like, and the fee earner said to me, oh, they sat here, they waited for 45 minutes, but, and then they went. I was like, well, why didn't you come and get me? And it was like, well, you were busy. And I could not believe that somebody who was a fee earner did not think, and bear in mind I'd said, let me know. And for me, I'm a very much a sort of person of 3 strikes and you're out. And I ended up having to have this conversation where I let this fee earner go because they just weren't listening to instructions, their lack of attention to detail. And I should have trusted that gut instinct that I knew that they weren't the right fit. Okay. Because ultimately, the wrong team member doesn't just underperform, they slow everyone down. They create tension, confusion, and mistrust. And before you know it, you're picking up the pieces again, like I ended up having to do. Now, I was quite fortunate in the fact I rang the client immediately, and thankfully, they weren't a big corporate client, because if they'd been a big corporate client, I would have had that one shot and it would have been gone. And they were quite prepared to meet later on in the day, and I managed to kind of fix the issue. But sometimes those sorts of mistakes aren't that fixable. Okay, so you really do need to make sure that when you hire, it's intentional. Your dream team isn't made up of people who all think the same. It's made up of people who bring different strengths to the table and share the same vision for success. But make sure that your recruitment process is in alignment so that you are finding the right people. Okay, so building a team that complements you, how do you do it? Well, first of all, you need to start with a skills audit. Look at the current structure of your business. What are the essential functions? Where are the gaps? What's being done efficiently or not at all? And be really honest, okay? There is no point being kind of touching the surface on this. This is when you have to go deep and assess where you sit in that structure. What are you doing that someone else could be doing better, faster, or more consistently? From there, you can then identify your next critical hire. Not the most exciting one, the right one. Whether it's operations, admin, marketing, client delivery, or finance, focus on the hire that will make the biggest difference to your business performance, okay? And this next one is a big one. Cultural fit comes first. Yes, your team needs to have the right experience, but I'm telling you, cultural fit matters more. Are they aligned with your values? Are they proactive? Are they open to feedback? Are they invested in your mission? And if they've got the right mindset and attitude, the rest can be taught. Skills can be developed, but the wrong mindset will cost you over and over again. And when you find someone who fits the culture and shares the vision, grab them. Those are the people who will go the distance with you. Now, I recently worked with a client where I actually helped with the recruitment process to bring on an admin person. And it was really quite interesting because on paper, there were certain candidates that really stood out. And when they came to interview, we were actually we kind of felt a bit disappointed by what was on paper didn't really reflect in real life. And then the person who perhaps on paper may not have been the strongest, but on the interview was absolutely phenomenal. They stood out from the crowd, right? And it was then we knew that it was a cultural fit, right? They didn't have years and years worth of experience, but you know what? They have been one of the best choices that we could have made in that business because they have excelled. We are so proud of how they're developing into the team. You know, we have invested the time to train them, and that is absolutely crucial. But in terms of that cultural fit and having the right attitude, that has made a huge difference. Okay. The next thing, delegate with clarity and confidence. There is absolutely no point building a team if you don't let them get on with it. Delegation is about clearly handing over the responsibility. And this means letting go. So you need to give them the tools, the support, and the authority needed for them to get the job done. And they will get the job done well. So start by defining what you're handing over, why it matters, and what success looks like. Let them take ownership. That's when performance improves and your time frees up. Do not micromanage your team. I know that sometimes it feels like that, you have to do it all and you want to do it all. But your business will not grow if you do that. And trust me, there will be people out there that will come up with ideas that are better than the way that you have been doing it. And it will make a game-changing difference to your business. Next, build trust and respect from day one. The best teams operate on trust, not fear, not authority, trust, right? So you don't need to be aggressive. You just need to trust the people that they're going to do their job. And remember, they are going to make mistakes. It's not the end of the world if they do. Trust that the mistakes are learning opportunities. Now, it is a completely different thing if you have trained them and they have made the same mistake several times over, okay? Because ultimately the first mistake is an opportunity to learn, right? But the mistakes that keep being repeated, there is a choice. And that's when you do have an issue. But if they are, if you haven't trained them or they've made a mistake the first time round, give them an opportunity, train them, support them, guide them. It's not about blame sessions. And remember that feedback flows both ways, because sometimes the way that you communicate, sometimes the way that you do things might not necessarily rub your team the right way. So take that feedback. And I can remember there were times when with my law firm that staff would actually pull me up on sometimes the way that I might have communicated something, might have done something, said something that had rubbed them the wrong way. And I would rather than them come to me and tell me that so I can be a better leader than be in a situation where they start to resent me and want to then look elsewhere, right? Like I said, that doesn't mean you're not holding them to account. It just means you are creating a culture where accountability and mutual respect go hand in hand. When your team feel respected, they will step up. When they trust you, they'll be honest. That's when the magic happens. Now, remember, leadership isn't a job, it's a responsibility. As the leader, your job is to set the tone, to model the behaviors you expect. You have got to lead by example. You need to communicate clearly. You've got to hold on to the vision, and you need to continually invest in the development of your people. Because here's the reality. Your business is only as strong as the team behind it. If you want high performance, you need to build it. You need to nurture it, and you need to lead it. And that starts with you making the shift from operator to leader. And why does this matter more than ever? In today's business climate, you cannot afford to do it all. Not if you want to grow, not if you want to regain your time, and certainly not if you want to build a business that gives you that freedom, not just more responsibility. When you focus on how to build a business team strategically, you finally stop firefighting and you start building something that is sustainable. You free yourself not only to be able to focus on the strategy, the growth, the bigger picture. You create space, you gain clarity, and you become a better leader. And most importantly, you give yourself the freedom to build that business that works for you, and freedom in your home life. How many times are you hearing from your wife, husband, partner, etc., that you are not spending enough time at home, that you are too busy focused on the business, and that even when you're physically home, your mind clearly isn't there? That's when it's time to really make a shift. And doing that shift from operator to leader and building your dream team is the way in which that freedom really can start to develop. Right. So what does your dream team actually look like? Take a moment and think about it. If you weren't trapped in the day-to-day, who would you need in place to step back? What roles would transform your business if you had the right person in them? And what would change if you had complete trust in your team? Now ask yourself, what's stopping you? If this is part of the business you know you need to fix but don't know where to start, then how about we fix it together? Because ultimately, I am here to help you create that business that works for you, not the other way around. I am here to help you to be able to create that freedom to live life on your own terms, whatever that may mean to you. And the first step in doing that is actually starting to work with me, and we can start to look at these things amongst other aspects in your business. So if you would like to have an initial chat, whether it's specifically about creating your dream team or whether it is just to have a chat about your business generally and ways in which it can be that more, that business that is performing more optimally, that you can finally work towards getting that freedom and create that business that works for you, then all you need to do is pop in the comments the word dream team, and we can then have a conversation. So I hope that you've got some real benefit from today's live, and you've got some hot tips there to be able to get cracking with. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you again at some point next week.